This happened last Christmas when my mom and little brother were traveling home to spend the holidays with me. My brother is only 6 years old and has been battling congenital heart disease since he was born. Last year, the doctors finally told us he needed a heart transplant. It's been rough on all of us, especially him. Throughout all the hospital stays and procedures, the one thing that's kept his spirits up is this special Elmo plush toy that his godfather gave him before passing away. My brother carries it everywhere. It's his comfort object during scary medical procedures. My mom and brother were at the airport waiting for their flight home. I was already back at our house preparing everything for Christmas. We were all looking forward to spending the holidays together as a family, especially since it might be our last Christmas with my brother if he didn't get a donor soon. While they were sitting at the terminal, some random guy approached them. At first, my mom thought he was just being friendly, maybe commenting on my brother's Elmo like people sometimes do with kids' toys. But then things got weird. The man offered my mom $500 for my brother's Elmo toy. My mom politely declined his offer. Not taking no for an answer, the man increased his offer to $1,500, pleading that his son really wanted the Elmo for Christmas. My mom told him that the Elmo belonged to her son and had been given to him by his godfather, making it clear she wouldn't part with it. At this point, my mom and brother got up and walked away to find their gate, hoping the man would take the hint. But he didn't. He actually followed them through the airport, continuing to harass them about the toy. My mom warned the man that she would get security if he didn't leave them alone. The man begged desperately, offering $3,000 for the Elmo and calling it a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Growing frustrated, my mom explained that her son was going through a heart transplant and the Elmo was the only thing giving him joy during this difficult time. She pleaded with the man to leave them alone. The man reluctantly agreed. She and my brother turned around to head to their gate, relieved that the awkward encounter was over. But when she looked back, she saw the man was still following them, staying just far enough away that he probably thought he wasn't noticeable. At this point, my mom was getting really scared. She spotted the security guard and approached him. She explained to the guard that the man had been following them for a long time and asked for his help. The security guard assured her he would handle the situation. The entitled dad must have realized what was happening because he suddenly sprinted toward my brother. Before anyone could react, he snatched the Elmo right out of my brother's arms. My brother immediately started crying and screaming for his Elmo. The security guard shouted for the man to stop. The security guard and a couple of his colleagues quickly went after the man and managed to detain him. My brother was hysterical at this point, and my mom was absolutely livid. My mom yelled at the man, demanding to know what was wrong with him and accusing him of stealing from her sick child. The man yelled back that she should have just sold it to him. My mom told him to get lost and rot in hell, her patience completely gone. The security team returned the Elmo to my brother, who clutched it tightly to his chest, still sobbing. The airport security took the crazy dad away. I later found out they actually arrested him for attempted theft and harassment. My mom and brother were escorted to their plane by security guards to make sure they weren't bothered again. When they finally arrived home, my mom was still shaking when she told me the story. My brother wouldn't let go of his Elmo for the entire holiday. We couldn't believe someone would be so entitled as to think they could just take something that clearly meant so much to a child, especially after being told repeatedly that it wasn't for sale. About a week later, we got a call from the police. The entitled dad was now facing charges due to some other incidents as well. They wanted to know if my mom would testify against him, which she happily agreed to do. 3 months after this incident, my brother finally got his heart transplant. He's doing much better now, though he still keeps that Elmo by his side through every checkup. Some people just don't understand that some things are worth more than money, no matter how much you offer. Back in 2000, my spouse and I were touring the United Kingdom, enjoying the sights, sounds, and, of course, the food. We were in a quaint little pub somewhere in England that specialized in spicy food. What caught my attention immediately was a side table loaded with hot sauces of various colors and intensities. The bottles had these over-the-top names and artwork that made them look like they could melt your face off. My spouse and I were enjoying our meal, making plans for the next day's adventures, when I noticed a kid, probably around 10 or 12 years old, approach the hot sauce table. The boy had a strong American accent as he asked the server if he could try one particular bottle. The server, a polite young man with a local accent, looked concerned and warned the boy that he wouldn't recommend that particular sauce because it was extremely hot, not just spicy. He explained that he wouldn't want the boy to get hurt. The boy started to insist, but before the server could respond further, we heard it. That sound that makes everyone in customer service cringe. A loud, "Excuse me," rang through the pub. A woman, quite overweight but not obese, swiveled around in her chair and walked over. She had the same American accent as the boy. She demanded to know if it was the custom in this establishment to refuse service to paying customers. The server looked startled and apologized, explaining that he was only concerned because the sauce was extremely potent, even for adults who enjoy spicy food. The woman told him that he didn't need to concern himself with other people's children and insisted that her son liked spicy food anyway. The server tried again to explain that this wasn't just spicy but something much stronger, but the woman cut him off and declared that she would taste it herself, asking if he would object to that. The server assured her that of course he wouldn't object. The poor server took a sampling stick, dipped it in the demonic concoction, and handed it to her. She snatched it and walked back to their table with her son, looking triumphant. The server shook his head slightly and returned to his duties. My spouse and I exchanged looks. We both had a bad feeling about what was coming. Not even 10 seconds later, an ear-piercing wail cut through the pub. The boy was coughing violently, tears streaming down his red face. He was clearly in severe pain, desperately reaching for his water glass. And what did his mother do? Test the sauce herself to see how hot it was? Get him milk to neutralize the capsaicin? Apologize for not listening to the warning? None of the above. Instead, she erupted. She shouted for the manager, demanding his presence immediately. She was on her feet, screaming at the top of her lungs, calling for security and demanding someone call the police, claiming this was assault. The server rushed over, looking horrified. Other staff members appeared, including the manager, a composed middle-aged man with a clipboard. The woman accused the server of deliberately giving her son something dangerous. She claimed he didn't like them because they were Americans and that he had said he hated Americans. She cried that her poor baby could have been seriously injured. The server was stammering, trying to defend himself, but was too flustered to form complete sentences. The manager, however, remained calm and asked the woman to lower her voice, suggesting they sort this out properly. The woman refused to lower her voice and accused the server of assaulting her child. By this point, the commotion had attracted the attention of two police officers who happened to be walking by. They entered the pub and approached our table. The first officer asked what the problem was. The woman immediately launched into her fictional account, pointing accusingly at the server, who looked ready to faint. The manager stepped in smoothly and told the officers that he believed they could clear this up quickly. He mentioned they had security cameras and asked if they would mind following him to the office to review the footage. The manager led the officers, the server, and the furious woman toward the back of the restaurant. The boy, whose mouth was probably still on fire but who had stopped wailing, sat quietly at the table with who I assumed was his father, looking embarrassed. My spouse and I had finished our meal, but we weren't about to leave before seeing how this drama concluded. We ordered coffee and waited. About 15 minutes later, we heard shouting from the back office. Suddenly, the door burst open and the woman was being physically escorted out by both police officers. She was kicking, screaming, and thrashing like a toddler having a meltdown. She was demanding to speak to the American embassy, insisting they couldn't do this to her because she was an American citizen. Her husband jumped up from the table, looking mortified, and asked what was happening and what was going on. The first officer explained that his wife was being detained for assault on a police officer. The second officer elaborated that after reviewing the security footage and seeing that she had lied about the server's actions, he had simply asked her why she would make such serious false accusations. She had responded by grabbing the videotape from the desk and smashing it against his colleague's head. I noticed then that the first officer had a nasty red mark on his forehead. The husband apologized profusely, saying he didn't know what to say. But his wife wasn't done. She continued to scream that they were all lying, that this was discrimination, and that she would sue the entire country. As they dragged her out to their patrol car, everyone in the pub sat in stunned silence for a moment before breaking into murmurs of disbelief. The husband gathered their things, took his son by the hand, and quickly left, his face burning with shame. The server returned to our table still looking shaken and apologized for all the commotion, asking if we needed anything else. I smiled at him and told him we just needed the check and maybe the name of that hot sauce because I had some friends back home who could use a lesson in humility. My father has always been my hero. At 54, he's still an amateur athlete who competes in triathlons and can outrun guys half his age. But his most remarkable trait? His ridiculous pain tolerance. This is a man who once drilled straight through his hand while working on our deck, simply put a band-aid on it, and continued working without so much as a wince. So when I tell you that what happened this morning was serious, believe me, we have this dog, a massive 78-kilogram saint, Bernard, that my dad adores. Every morning, without fail, rain or shine, he takes her for a walk around the neighborhood. Today was no different, except when they returned, I immediately knew something was wrong. My dad was walking with a strange gait, one hand pressed against his ribcage, his face tight with discomfort. I asked him what happened, already reaching for my phone. He downplayed it, saying he had just slipped when the dog pulled on the leash and insisted he would be fine. But the way he winced when he tried to sit down told me everything I needed to know. I immediately called our family doctor and managed to secure an appointment for 12:30. Given it was last minute, we only had a 10-minute slot, but I figured it was better than nothing. We arrived at the doctor's office with a few minutes to spare and took our seats in the waiting room. My dad was clearly in pain, but, true to his nature, sat stoically, only the occasional deep breath giving away his discomfort. At about 12:27, she walked in. A woman in her late 50s, well-dressed but with a perpetual frown etched on her face. She checked in at the reception and took a seat across from us, immediately pulling out her phone. By 12:35, she was already making loud comments about the waiting time. She muttered to no one in particular that this was ridiculous and that some people had important things to do today. At exactly 12:40, the door to the doctor's office opened. Before the doctor could even call our name, the woman was on her feet and halfway across the room. The woman announced with clear irritation that it was finally her turn and complained that she had been waiting for so long. Our doctor apologized but explained that it wasn't her turn yet and then called for my father. I helped my dad to his feet, supporting him as we made our way toward the doctor's office. The woman objected strongly. She insisted that since it was 12:40, it should be her turn because her appointment was scheduled for that time. She added that she had a sick daughter at home who needed medicine. Our doctor questioned why she came to the appointment without her daughter and asked if she understood that's not how doctor visits worked. When we approached, our doctor's eyes widened when she saw my dad struggling to walk. She immediately came to help support him. The woman accused my father of faking his pain, claiming he had been just fine while sitting in the waiting room. I tried to diffuse the situation with an awkward smile, explaining that my father had actually been quite uncomfortable in the waiting room but wasn't the type to show pain around others. Our doctor backed me up, stating that she had known my father for a long time and had never seen him show so much pain in public, confirming he wasn't faking it. The woman's face transformed from mildly annoyed to absolutely furious. She began shouting that my father was obviously pretending to be in pain just to avoid waiting longer. She insisted that she should go first because she had a sick daughter at home, and her appointment was scheduled for 12:40, not hours. She continued shouting for about a minute before our doctor cut her off. The doctor told her to stop, explaining that we had made our appointment before she did. She added that if the woman had wanted to be seen first, she could have at least asked nicely. Our doctor emphasized that my father was in genuine pain and needed to be examined, and told the woman to back off. The woman's face turned bright red. She started hurling insults at us before suddenly charging at my dad. Now I'm not a big guy, only 178 centimeters and 63 kilograms, and I'm not typically protective. But when I saw her rushing toward my injured father, something snapped. I stepped between them, arms out to block her. The woman started shouting for help, claiming that she was being assaulted by a teenager. My dad, still confused by the whole situation, bellowed for everyone to stop. His voice echoed through the waiting room, startling everyone, including the woman, who finally backed off. My dad and the doctor quickly moved into the examination room, while I stayed behind to make sure the woman didn't try anything else. Instead of causing more trouble, she acted as if nothing had happened and walked toward the exit. But before she could leave, two construction workers who had overheard everything stopped her and kept her there until the police arrived. Apparently, one of the receptionists had called them when the shouting started. After my dad's appointment, the police asked if he wanted to press charges for attempted assault. Without hesitation, he said yes. It turns out my dad had bruised two ribs from the fall. The doctor prescribed strong painkillers, and when we got home, he fell into what I can only describe as the deepest sleep I've ever seen him have. The woman? This time, though, she picked the wrong patient to mess with, and she's now facing charges and has been banned from our doctor's office. Everything started in 6th grade when I was part of a tight-knit friend group of 6 people who had known each other for about 3 years. That year, a new student transferred to our school. Let's call her Karen. She sat next to me because of alphabetical seating. We became friends quickly, and I introduced her to my group. Karen never fully integrated because she was busy trying to climb the social ladder by befriending popular kids. I later discovered she only talked to me because I knew some popular people. When the popular groups rejected Karen, she tried to worm her way back into my friend circle, focusing on one friend in particular. I didn't notice until my friend told me Karen was making her uncomfortable. I started keeping Karen at arm's length but remained classroom acquaintances because I believed she was just trying to make friends. Fast forward to 10th grade. My friend group drifted apart. Everyone found new groups while I struggled with the change. I got clingy because I couldn't accept we were growing apart, which led to depression. During this time, I continued confiding in Karen. Seeing how vulnerable I was, she decided it was a perfect opportunity to replace me in my former friend group. Karen outed me as pansexual in our conservative community, spread rumors, and told my old friends I was talking badly about them. She called me crazy when in reality, I was in therapy for depression. This continued for months until one day in class, Karen announced in front of everyone that I was a fake female dog and deserved to die. That's when I realized she was never my friend. Something snapped, and I promised myself revenge. Karen had a habit of trash-talking other students to me. For 2 weeks, I pretended nothing happened and collected screenshots and recordings of her saying terrible things about others. Then, I strategically told the gossipy popular student that Karen had been talking badly about her. When the gossipy student asked what Karen had said, I reluctantly told her Karen had called her fake and claimed she only had friends because of her parents' money. The student was shocked and felt betrayed. When Karen wasn't around, this student told other girls in our class. I showed everyone the evidence of Karen's behavior. Even my former friends believed me, because Karen had also trash-talked their new friends. Other students started sending me their own screenshots of Karen's two-faced behavior. I created an anonymous social media account, posted the evidence, and messaged people Karen had badmouthed. I encouraged students to report her to the guidance counselor. Karen eventually realized what was happening, but it was too late. She became completely ostracized by our grade and most of the school. When Karen confronted me, she asked why everyone was being mean to her. I simply told her people had found out what she'd been saying behind their backs. She protested it wasn't fair. I replied that these were her own words and actions. She was forced to apologize to our class, but it wasn't sincere. She didn't grasp how badly she'd messed up until the reputation followed her to high school. The guidance counselor asked if I thought this had gone far enough. I reminded her that Karen had told me I deserved to die in front of our class, outed my sexuality, and tried to destroy my friendships when I was at my lowest. I eventually forgave Karen since we were just kids. I've come a long way since then, and I hope she has too.